Good evening. I'm calling to order the March 3rd, 2026 meeting of the Southborough Select Board. First item on our agenda is public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on an item that's not on the posted agenda. We try to keep comments to 3 minutes or less, and it's not intended as a back and forth, just an opportunity to offer a comment. Does anyone here wish to offer a public comment? Anyone online? Okay. So then the next item on our agenda is a joint meeting with the school committee to review the developments from last night's special town meeting. Do you want to call your meeting to order?
Okay, great.
So.
All right, so I am calling the Southborough School Committee meeting to order on Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026 at 6:01 PM. And we have three members. Roger Challen and I are present in the room, and Laura Kaufman's online.
All right, so to review the votes that we had last night, the meeting went very well in that the roof repair was passed. And all these votes were overwhelming, as well as Article 1, the feasibility study for the Neary renovation, and the other two alternative articles were defeated. So I think that this is good. It suggests that there is a consensus town meeting that we want to focus our time and resources on thinking of different ways of doing a Neary renovation, not exploring other sites. And we knew that if this happened, we would need to start a new building committee. I think we don't need a committee for the roof repair.
No,
Right, okay.
agreed. I can speak to next steps on that
Sure.
as well if you want.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just.
You want me to do that now?
Yeah.
Okay. So with the roof passing, it obviously still needs to go to the ballot, which we knew. So that will happen May 12th. And then Brian will be able to go through and get the bonds set up so that we're ready to go July 1st, if not a little bit before that. So that being said, the superintendent's office, and I believe Superintendent Martineau's online. So if we can just bring him over. Okay, great. And Greg, feel free to-
Denise is here too.
Oh, great. And Denise just joined at 6:03. Thank you. Greg, feel free to raise your hand if you want to add to any of this. So the superintendent's office has been working with Socotec on next steps, which we will need additional funding for. And Greg is working with the finance department on the school side to see what options we have to be able to fund the next steps for Socotec to prepare the bid documents to go out to bid so that when the funding is ready, that we're ready to start construction. So they're working on that. And once, I hope that next Wednesday's school committee meeting, we will have a plan to authorize funds to be used for that piece. And because we won't have access to the $4.5 million until after the ballot. So this is just an interim step that we'll need to take.
I remember when they were before us, they mentioned something about something in their contract that is like an option you could exercise to do something.
Yeah, so in the RFQ, I believe, bid documents, that was one of the line items, was for them to be able to continue to bid on, or to continue the process, but there would be an extra fee in order to get the bid documents ready to go out for construction.
And it's going to include that the roof has to not be done so that you put in a roof and then there might be other work done.
Correct. Yes, we will outline it so that any future renovation or upgrade to the building will tie in to the roof, and that the roofing contractor, whoever bids on that, will be aware that there could be a potential project after the roof is complete.
All right.
Greg, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I would just add that the goal is to make sure that if there are any renovations that take place after the roof is installed, the warranty remains in place. And again, we've received confirmation that that will be the case, the installer of the roof will then come back and do any necessary penetrations to the roof for any renovation projects.
Thank you. Anybody else from school committee want to add anything?
So that takes care of the roof timeline.
Yes.
So then the next step here is, and because we're just doing this right after the meeting, we're kind of just doing this free flowing here, right? We need a building committee. It takes time, from my experience. You put together a charge, discuss the charge, you approve the charge, you recruit people. For a significant committee, I don't think to ever had one where everyone is appointed all in one meeting, maybe once, so that takes some time, right? We try to do it as fast as possible. And then also, bids need to be, a bid package needs to be put out for that as well. And then if there's multiple bidders, there's got to be a process to select which bid to accept, all of that. Do you have any thoughts on how that process is going to work?
I do. I don't think we should wait to seat a building committee to wait for the bid documents to be put together and potentially put out. So I would recommend that at our, that school committee at our next Wednesday meeting, task the district with getting those bid documents ready, or even review a draft if they can be ready prior to that, and get those out as soon as we feel that we're comfortable with those documents.
Well, I agree. So why, as chair, can't you ask Greg and his team to go ahead and get them ready so that you really could probably even approve them next Wednesday when you meet? So get that out ASAP.
Greg, is next Wednesday a feasible timeline to have a draft or bid document ready?
It can be a target date. So we'll try, but most likely wouldn't be until after next Wednesday's meeting that we're ready to present to the school committee a draft to review.
Could I jump in here with one small thing? There is a NERI building committee which existed until the last town meeting.
Mhm.
Do you think it would be a good idea, or I mean, I'll take direction from you, on giving the moving forward committee a slightly different name? Like renovation committee, whatever, just so that
That's
there's
fine with me. Yeah,
distinct, just,
I think that's fine. When we are ready to approve the charge, I think if we want to name it something different, I don't have an issue with that.
So I've got a question,
Yeah.
a couple actually. My understanding is that building programs for schools are actually under the purview of the select board. Am I misunderstanding that?
I honestly, this is the first time I've done this because everything else, all these other building committees have been MSBA, and there's a very prescribed format for that. You just follow the MSBA regulations. So this is I don't know when was the last time there was a building committee that was non-MSBA. So
Well, but I
honestly
think
don't
he's
know.
right. The select board has appointed the most recent building committees for schools. I think that is technically correct.
Yeah, that with all due respect to the school committee, that's my understanding of the rules, that we're responsible for building and then we turn a building over to the school committee. I could be wrong, and it'd probably be a good idea to double check that with town council.
But what's your point, Al?
Well, I guess my point is that if we're going to prepare bid documents, the body that's responsible for the
Selection,
selection and the actual construction should be the body that's responsible for preparing the bid documents. I'm not gonna,
I mean,
it's not a hill I want to die on.
I
but
guess I was trying to keep this moving and was,
I agree with you.
offering our
I think we need to have
district to,
clear roles and responsibilities. And I have no objection to you preparing the bid documents with the understanding, and again, subject to clarification, that this is the select board's responsibility to actually manage this process. If I'm wrong, I'll.
Are you talking about the roof too, or are you just talking about the building project? Because the roof.
don't
in
know
gen-
about the roof.
So, just so for example, the Trotter roof, and Greg can be honest here, the involvement that the select board had is really related to that project is the application for the MSBA and any MSBA documentation that needs to be co-signed with us, but we have been the ones that have been working on all the bid documents and all the steps needed to move the roof project forward.
I would, guess I would classify the roof as maintenance as opposed to a
Okay.
building program,
All right, I just want to make
How's
sure
that
we're
for-
clear on,
walking a tightrope.
okay, yes.
So assuming Al's right, and I think he is, I still think that delegating to Greg's team to prepare the bid documents is the right thing to do because I think they've got a better idea of what to put in those documents, as far as they go, and then we review them, and sign off on them. So as far as who literally puts them together, I'm not sure it matters, as long as select board in the end, signs off, and I think you guys should sign off too. I mean, this is your building.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would move that the select board request that the superintendent prepare the bid documents for the NERI evaluations as approved by town meeting.
There a second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Thank you. So, and this, I think if we were to have a building committee already, then naturally that would have been
Yeah.
that committee doing it. So I think we're just doing it a little
Well, I think that,
non-conventional order.
again, I'm
but-
just throwing this out there. So then the next step is, so bid documents go out, then
Mhm.
bids come back.
And I
we
think
have-
by then we would want to have a building committee
Yes.
seated to go through that whole process.
Yes, and then I'm thinking whether the ultimate, whether the board comes back, the building committee comes back to the select board for approval of who the final bidder or some other process.
The NERI building committee didn't do that.
Mhm.
We get authority to do a lot of stuff. So
I mean, I don't know that it actually would add that much value to do that. But
well, given that we're going to be part of the effort to appoint this committee, we're basically delegating to them, I think, to take it from there.
Right.
That's what the committee's for.
For what it's worth, there was confusion before about that process. I don't know if there'd be a good just to come back here as an approval step as public. Just so the public can see more, since our meetings are a little bit more watched than some of the other things going on. I think that it wouldn't hurt to intercept a step here, just so that way there's a clarity to the public that happens in this format.
There was no confusion with the NERI building committee process. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Tim.
There-
It was very clear how that process was supposed to work and did work.
It's more about the idea that there's a lot of meetings going on, so if it's on our agenda, it gets seen by more people. So that's more of my point. How, if we're a bottleneck or not, I'm not sure how we put ourselves in the right spot for this, but if it's on our agenda, more people see it. That's all I'm saying.
How long would it take to do 15 minutes of a meeting, right? Not long.
Are you looking to explain where you're at, or are you looking to actually approve what the building committee brings back to you? I think those are two very different things.
If we explain, if the committee explains where they're at and it's in our meeting for a step, like that's just a necessary step before it's approved, it's just like, this is what we're thinking, and then we can, it's an, I don't want to say interrogation at that moment, but opportunity to ask questions in a public in this format. I think that'd be fine. It's just it's having it on the agenda and on the schedule that people see it on the select board meeting to be able to jump in at that right time and ask questions. I feel like they're in the same loop.
So I think as part of the charge, you would put
Yeah. I think, yeah,
periodic
Yeah.
select board updates in a public meeting, and then you cover yourself, and I think you guys can define with whatever committee is created, the cadence that you want those updates given.
Which is exactly what the NERI building committee did.
Correct.
On a regular basis.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of course we did.
All right, so then I think we're not gonna be able to solve all these things tonight, but I think we could identify the issues that we should consider and then we come back. I think by the next meeting, we can start to review drafts of a committee charge. Right? It's
Mhm.
not
Yeah,
fully ambitious. So.
I agree, but I would also request that we continue to ask the school committee to join us for those discussions
Yes.
and get their input into the charge and the input
Well,
process.
and I
to
think
appoint the
looking
people.
back on, the successful outcome that we had last night, I think some of the, we had at least 3 joint meetings there that led up to that
mhm.
between school committee and select board that I think were
Yeah.
really helpful, including, even that one, it was a lot of detail, we're at night and having red lines of these articles up on the screen and working through them. I mean, we can't do that every meeting, something like that, but at least for this charge, it's something we should work together. I mean, the key issues here are how many people are on the committee? And the appointing authority and the classic question of whether you designate seats for representatives of certain boards or whether you just say, whether you don't, you just have a kind of an open invitation. We've
5 best people you can find, 7 best people you can find, 6 best people you can
I
find.
mean, yeah. Al, what are your thoughts on this? On those,
Somewhere between 5 and 7.
yeah,
I think I lean more towards 5, but
Me too.
just to move things along. It's going to be very, very important that, and this is going to be an unpleasant conversation for a minute, that this be seen as a credible process. And I know that the vast majority of school committee, and I think at least a majority of the select board, were not in favor of option 2. And a number of people have spoken quite vociferously against it. And yet town meeting, when they were offered the opportunity to drop option 2, overruled that substantially in both rooms. I checked. So the evaluation of option 2 has to be seen as a credible process by people who don't have an agenda. That's all I'm going to say on that subject. But that's, I think, an important consideration as we move forward.
I'm confused. Option 2 failed. We're not going to evaluate.
No,
option 2. Did you mean?
No, that was Article 2. Option 2.
Oh,
Article
sorry,
1,
sorry,
option-
sorry. Option 2, Article 1. Okay, sorry.
so I think what Al's saying is
Be nice to have some fresh faces.
that what this article that passed does is this is the study we're going to get is going to explore a code compliant minimum renovation with a target overall cost of 15, and then that would be less the 4.5 on the roof. And a more, if that was not your target, what are other proposals that would kind of take the building forward?
It's-
and cost more than
It's a
that?
complete renovation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Complete
renovation
renovation's 1
versus-
and 2 is a.
so I think you're saying you don't want the committee to give short shrift to the,
Option 2, because that would not help option 1 pass if that's what people
no, I mean,
want.
I haven't.
I don't think there's any disagreement.
Agreed.
It passed. I mean,
Totally
that's what we approved last night was to.
It's
I
gotta
agree.
have, the committee's gotta have a balance of different types of people on the committee.
Right.
But what do you think about, there's a lot of committees and we've had mixed success where there's a designee from this board, a designee from that board, a designee from that board. It gives yourselves a lot more flexibility if you don't do that.
I agree.
I agree.
I agree too.
Yeah.
I agree too. I don't know if anybody else from the school committee disagrees with that. Okay. So you have consensus there.
Do you think that 5 is an appropriate
do.
number?
I do.
And, okay, I think I said in my presentation last night, I'm not sure how kind of aspirational, but like, is our projected timeline that these studies are gonna come back and then in the fall, that we would, that's one thing I think we should consider. And it was just it was just kind of a structural flaw, I think, in the MSBA calendar, is some of the most critical decisions happen in the summer. I mean, there were, at some of the early public forums, there were red lights flashing. There's going to be an important discussion during the summer. It doesn't matter. People will just still be not as focused. So, I mean, we should think about that, you know?
Well, there won't be any forums. Whoever gets this bid is going to spend the entire summer, early fall doing the work. And then we'd be ready, hopefully in September, October, to have another special town meeting to actually bring a project forward.
Well, then, I mean, another thing to put out there is, okay, is the charge of the committee to narrow it down to one project? Or would it be to put a couple different, I mean, that's one of the reasons we're going down, like, one of the questions I was thinking about for last night is why aren't we doing MSBA? And this is one of the key reasons why we're not doing MSBA, is that
Well,
we think we'll
This
get a,
this is what I think you do. We've asked for two options to be studied, right? So they're going to come forth with
Yep.
two options. That's what would be at the special town meeting. But you could also say, this is the option if we use completely town funding. This is the option if we go through the MSBA process. It would cost less net, but it would take more time. So you give them basically two versions of each one.
And you're potentially not in MSBA yet.
What's that?
And you're potentially not in MSBA yet, right?
Yeah.
So you're adding an unknown amount of time plus,
So I think
3
you
years.
factor that in and you're going to have to
Right.
roll forward those costs.
Correct.
Yes, you're going to save money, but then the costs are going to be more. because
Correct.
it's
They,
later.
they may
Should
find
it-
more than two options.
Yeah.
correct.
This is different than the prior effort.
Yeah.
In that prior effort was a blank sheet of paper. And, you know, there were a number of, I'm gonna call them visioneering sort of activities. I have.
We
lots
were
of-
required by the MSBA to
Well,
come up with every single scenario that
Well,
was
no,
possible.
no,
That's where you started.
Let me finish. In terms of, you know, don't think about money, just think about what you'd like in a school, things like that. This is quite different. I mean, we have a physical plant, we got a box, and we're gonna do some things inside that box. And so this is really more about engineering and architecture than it is about design. And there's design elements, but than it is about designing a building. This is a renovation project, one way or the other. And so I think there should be public forums to keep the public informed, but they're very different, I think, than the class of public forums that existed for the prior project. You know, this is a renovation project.
Well, one of the things that occurs to me is, do we want to add on a new gym or not? I mean, that's another. It
That,
changes
that
the
could be an
footprint.
alt ad at the end, but there's still two options here, Marguerite. So they're not gonna come forth and say, okay, now let's build it at Finn.
Right.
That's off the table. So this is Neary, either a
Understood.
full renovation or a partial renovation. And you can either say, if we want to get state money, this is for the timing, this is what the cost would be. They can roll forward those costs, right? And then you can put an alt ad because of the need to have a viable gym at Neary.
Isn't there another opportunity at the same time for elements of the building to get reimbursed and not the whole building? Like the way that Trottier's roofs get reimbursed through the.
So that would be through the accelerated repair
Mhm.
process, or program, which would be the same process and timeline.
Is it easier though to get elements
No,
fixed?
because
No,
we're in the
it's
process
same
with
thing.
Trotter Roof right now, and Greg, you can keep me honest here. But I believe that we applied for that 3 years ago, and we're now going for construction on April 11th for funds for that. So the timeline's still pretty constraining.
Okay.
So the accelerated repair program funds roofs, windows, and heating systems. So obviously the roof would be replaced. We could look at windows possibly, but again, it's a longer term project because we have to go through each of the MSBA steps, even for an ARP program.
The other thing too, to keep in mind is with the core program, which is what we were in before, which the total renovation would also be in if we applied, you get a lot more points when it's a repair than a brand new school. So we get, instead of the effective 33, 34%, we might get effective 40, 41, 42%. So there might be even a bigger reimbursement depending on how we apply for this. So anyway, TBD.
So I know we have
Yes.
Senator Eldridge and Representative Donahue here, and we're trying to keep this opening.
Okay, so we've agreed, 5 people, nobody specifically from a committee, and then we will work on the charge between now and next week and work with the school committee on that charge.
And that sounds like that's the consensus, but before we moved on, I just want to find out, I don't know if there's anyone else from the school committee that wants to chime in on this, or another idea I had, Superintendent Martineau said last night that the Lincoln Street School was kind of maybe a model for,
Yeah.
was that MSBA?
Yes,
Okay.
it was.
There is hardly any school renovated or built in this town, in this state that is not MSBA. You can hardly find one. So it's very unusual not to go through the MSBA program because there's so much
So
money.
that makes this a little more difficult because we're kind of making this up as we go along in terms of the charge of the building committee, but it's not rocket science.
I believe
Um,
there's a
But
couple.
there are opportunities potentially to get MSBA money. So whether we chose option 1 or option 2, the things like the heating system, we might have to wait 3 years to upgrade the heating system, but that's at least something that should be considered. Same thing for windows.
All right,
So-
so we'll wait to hear from.
Yeah, so we'll
you
plan on
timing.
taking this up at our next meeting on the 10th.
Okay,
All right?
all right, great.
So you're welcome to join us if you want.
Yep,
Okay?
yep,
All right.
we would love to be here.
Okay.
We want you to be here.
All right, anybody else have anything to add to the school committee or online?
Maybe Greg could comment on how long it might take, because I think the timing question, state, once they receive our application, they will then say how long we will be in line and invited you to the MSBA, that's right. It's not like 3 years, it's not 4, it depends on your fulfillment of other projects. Am I correct, Greg? We were lucky the last time to be accepted right away because of the need. Doesn't mean this time going around. That's an unknown. It's not a good.
Well, I think that's where this new building committee will have to project out what it's gonna cost if we were to wait on these and then calculate in the reimbursement and see which way we want to go. I think, a minimum of 3 years. You're right, we were lucky the first time we got in on the first try. I don't know that means, I think a lot of the funding is going to one particular high school for this current year, and obviously there's been others getting in line while we got out.
But they know our projects, and my guess is we would be able to make a phone call and get some idea of where we might be. I would think they would, so.
All right, Roger, move we adjourn at 6:28. Second, roll call vote, Laura?
Yes.
Okay. Denise? Roger? Chelsea's aye. Thank you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night.
Yay. She says.
Back in the
Come on
car.
up.
Mhm. Back in the car.
So welcome. Thanks for coming through the snow out from the State House to join us.
It was very slow.
So just to give both of you, I'm sure you don't really need any introduction, but our state senator, Senator Eldridge, and our state representative, Kate Donahue.
These funds, they're on, right?
Yeah, so just to give you some background on what all that was about, we had a special town meeting last night, which you may have heard about. We had a big school building project in May 2025, and there was a special town meeting vote. It was an MSBA sponsored project that would have closed or would have replaced an existing 2-grade school with a new 4-grade school on the same site, and the town meeting did not approve it and didn't receive the approval at that ballot. So last night, we had a vote where town meeting approved funds to replace the roof on the building. And then what we did is we gave town meeting a couple different, the option to fund different feasibility studies of different potential school building projects.
Mhm.
Some of which involved consolidating, closing schools and putting them into existing, moving grades around. And basically what the vote was that to focus on renovating this building. So what we're talking about there is a charge for.
Right.
So that,
Thank you.
just so you have a little flavor of what
No,
we're
it's
doing there.
We're
I
listening.
have
Yep.
to say,
Okay.
I read a little bit about the town meeting and what are we gonna do if the roof blows off?
Yeah.
So, very real question.
Well, I think it's been a couple of years since we have invited you in to, just give a regular update about what's going on at Beacon Hill and how it affects Southborough and municipalities. I think kind of the story, for my now like fifth year on the select board, it's very different than it was in 2021 and when I was on the advisory committee in 2019. The fiscal outlook for municipalities has changed. We were in kind of the
Yeah.
ARPA era where
Right.
we kind of got to cheat a little bit and use federal stimulus money to
Mhm.
artificially reduce year over year tax increases, and that's now gone. So
Mhm.
we are kind of fending for ourselves. So I'll just turn it over to you to offer any thoughts you have and about kind of the
Sure.
fiscal picture or questions you have for us, or,
Absolutely.
all right,
Appreciate your editorial comments.
okay.
So thank you so much for having us. So did we not come last year? Is that?
I don't
we had-
think so. I
Is
don't
that
think so. I
right?
think we
Okay.
just skipped a year. but-
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, good to see you again. Thank you so much for having us and good to see the school committee as well. Very challenging situation with the schools. So I just wanted to give a brief update is, first on the budget front, obviously the biggest things that impact Southborough are the, as far as line items or state aid accounts is first of all, the UGA unrestricted general government aid, and then of course, education aid. In terms of the UGA proposal, and you probably already know this, but Governor Healy and her budget proposed a modest increase in unrestricted local aid. I know that MMA and select boards were looking for a much more significant increase. And I think that speaks to the fact that, not to be a broken record, but we're clearly going to face a challenging budget as well, where I think from most accounts, if you're talking healthcare or open space or say public higher ed, you're going to see level funding. We're hoping to see an increase above what the governor proposed for unrestricted local aid. So certainly that's what I'm advocating for. And then the same for Chapter 70 and the other education accounts. Last year, the legislature did increase education aid, particularly for school districts like Southborough and Northborough Southborough, by focusing on the $150 per pupil minimum aid. So, that's going to help this town the most and most of the communities I represent. So, we will be advocating for that. And then, of course, as far as other educational areas, not that it really helps this school district very much, but this is the last year of the Student Opportunity Act. So that was a 5-year phase-in of about $3 billion. We know that most of it did go to low-income school districts, but this is the final year for that. And then, what I hear often is, therefore focus on special education reimbursement, which often provides the biggest source of state support for school districts like Southborough, Northborough, Southborough. Regional school transportation, obviously for the regional school district. And certainly, I think there was just recently a report around the bus or transportation costs related to special education, where school districts are sending students out to Chapter 766 schools. So I really hope we can address that as well. So that's sort of the more obvious budget picture as far as what most impacts Southborough. And then I think I would just add to that is I do chair the Revenue Committee on the Senate side. So, I am someone who's in favor of raising revenue on the wealthy. I don't know if we will do that this session, but I certainly advocate for that. What perhaps is more likely is how can we provide more local options for Southborough? So I am the Senate sponsor of the local option meals tax bill, which would allow any town, if the bill passed, any town or city to increase by 0.75% for the meals tax. So, you know, that could hopefully benefit Southborough some. And then the governor has filed something around increasing the motor vehicle excise tax by a 5% surcharge that obviously the town would also keep. So you know, we want to provide more tools in the toolkit. The Municipal Empowerment Act, which is sort of the municipal relief bill, that's a comprehensive bill the governor's filed. And I am feeling confident we will pass a version of that, including hopefully the local option revenue. So that's the perspective from the Revenue Committee. All those bills were heard by the Revenue Committee, so they're pending in the committee. And I think other than that, just what to expect the rest of the session is that, you know, we are going to pass an environmental bond bill. Many people in Southborough really treasure Southborough's excellent job of protecting open space. So that's more opportunities for grants to protect open space in Southborough, to provide things like the municipal vulnerability preparedness funding for climate action at the local level. So I know climate action, open space are big priorities for Southborough and Southborough residents and this board. And then I think soon we'll be passing a Chapter 90 bill for roads and bridges. And because of the millionaire's tax that passed in 2022, we have been able to increase that fairly significantly. I think maybe by like 50% or something. So you know, that is more money for Southborough for your roads and bridges. So my sense is we will pass that soon. So that's another bond bill. And then just on the Senate side, hoping to pass a energy bill sometime soon. Advocate a lot for a bill around immigration, which I hear from a lot of constituents about. And then the Senate just passed, what the House already passed, the BRIGHT Act for public higher education, to invest in infrastructure in our public higher education institutions. So that's just a little perspective on what's happened at Beacon Hill, and great to be here with my friend and colleague, Representative Keith Donahue. So thanks for having us.
Thank you, Senator. The senator did, as usual, an awesome job of the state of the budget. I did want to kind of give a little bit of perspective. At this point, or previously, approximately 19 billion of our budget comes from the federal government, and the anticipated cuts are about 3.7 billion. So there are some really good programs that will need to be cut. As the senator referenced, the fair share is unaffected, actually performing better than predictions. So transportation education money should be reasonably stable. There'll be a very tight budget for everything else. So the House did pass an affordable energy bill with, it was very hard fought with I think a very well thought out compromise between some of the originally proposed cuts to clean energy goals while still addressing the affordability. So I think it'll be interesting to see how the two chambers differ and what comes out of the conference committee. So those were a couple of things, and I continue to work on some of the similar things. Nothing particularly relevant to Southborough. We got information from Mark Purple and his office with a few choices for what you're looking for earmarks for. And my office will be putting in for the tricentennial celebration. We have to, you know, I do represent multiple communities, but hoping to be able to get the full 35,000 that was requested. And one of the other things that the senator and I have been working on a little very recently is the very Southborough issue, the issue of the radiation in hazardous waste. You're all familiar with that. And I've been talking to DPH as well as Dana-Farber, as well as the MMA. And it's a very, I understand it's been very costly for the town. And from the information I have, it looks like there might be a possibility of addressing the issue through regulatory change. DPH has been handling the day-to-day impacts of it in terms of what's been hitting the hazardous waste, but it's actually a DEP regulation, so multiple departments involved. And as I said, I flagged it for the MMA, and when I flagged it for them, Southborough was the only town, they hadn't heard about it from anybody, but I sent the information that DPH sent to me that included the other municipalities that have been impacted by this. So there might be a little more interest coming from the MMA side of things. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, and thanks again to my colleague, Senator Eldridge. I sometimes sit here, and I shouldn't say this, but I remember meeting Andrew when he was in high school.
I know you're.
Get out.
And I met him when he was even younger.
Yeah, that's where we go way back from Acton. Kathy, you have any questions, comments?
I've got a lot. So I did not realize you were chair of the revenue committee, so I'm gonna look at you for some of this. Okay, the mills tax, I hope it does pass. A lot of the mills tax that we collect here comes from people from out of town.
Exactly.
So it's not a direct levy onto our residents. The problem in Southborough is we keep losing restaurants. It's horrible. So we're trying to find ways to bring restaurants back. Costco's lease being signed
Yeah.
should help that. We hope it's going to attract a good restaurant into that. But I would like to see that doubled so that we can double that revenue. So that would be great. Costco, the lease is signed.
Mhm.
The developer is Atlantic Management. They have very good connections with the state, especially Kim Driscoll. They're meeting, but there's still a set of state approvals that need to be had to make this
Yes.
project go. So anything you can do to push those along. The
Absolutely.
previous owner, Dale and EMC, had those approvals, but they expired. So we're hoping we can get that done quickly to get Costco building, hopefully in the summer. So anything you can do to push that along would be helpful. The MMA bill that we've been talking about, the Municipal Empowerment Act, we hope that passes too, because it's got some good things in force. The problem is, just the numbers you just gave us, a 2.5% increase in our unrestricted government aid is not even inflation. So it's not an increase, it's a decrease. So it just makes us have to then raise more real estate taxes to make up for the fact that that piece of our revenue is not being at least kept up with our budget increase. So that part, I just don't understand why they, whoever makes a decision doesn't at least try to keep us even. So it would help if, inflation got factored into that number each year before they decided what it is, but it never has been. It's never been inflation, as long as I can remember. So every year we take a cut. So that would help if that were looked at. Pilot payments. We have, as you know, and we've talked about this before with you guys here, we've got 3 large not-for-profit schools in this town: New England Children's Center, St. Mark's, and Faith School. We've also got the Harvard Bookstore Depository. So we really got 4. Those schools are strapped too for budgets. So we beg, they give us some money, nowhere near the cost of the services that they actually use. We don't expect them to pay the full dollar, but the bill that has been sitting, I guess, how long now? And the legislature that doesn't seem to be going anywhere, that would at least require not-for-profits to pay 25% of what they would pay otherwise, seems to just be DOA, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just all the nonprofits obviously weigh in and oppose.
Of course they do. I understand, big lobby, whatever,
Yep.
but it kills us in this town. It's a lot of money. I believe the last time I calculated, if those 4 entities were paying full real estate taxes, it'd be $5 million. Our whole budget is 70. So it's a huge loss of revenue for us. Most towns have 1 private school. We've got 3. So, again, literally beg, and, with some success, but nowhere near the cost of what they use. And they do use these services, police, fire, and roads for sure. So anything that could be done there to get, it would just help us if we had a state law to back up the begging that we do, right? So that it'd be something that they have to pay without us
Mhm.
having to beg for that. Chapter 90, we got 50% one year, but the rest of the years have been, it's been like this as far as the fair share going to chapter 90. So it's not been steady and it's not been 50%. So I don't know why.
Past few years, ever since the millionaires tax passed, there's been increases, yeah.
There has been, okay, but it's been like 250 1 year, 90 1 year, so we can't rely on it. So it'd be helpful to have some type of reliance. We've got a big set of roads we need to fix in this town. We are going to town meeting in April to get a $25 million bond approved, so we can try to fix everything faster than we normally do. So more chapter 90 money, or at least money we could rely on. Right now, our superintendent doesn't want to rely on the fair share piece because it's just been so unreliable. We've gotten some, but it's not 50%. 1 year it was, but not the rest of the year. So if we could just have some type of reliable number that he could factor into his numbers, that would be helpful too. And then
I
I just
think what
got,
I would say is that what you've gotten over the past couple of years, expect that to continue.
but it's gone like this.
No, not since the millionaires taxes passed. It has had increases and it's stayed there. It's never decreased. Because that's where part of the millionaires tax is going.
So I'm just going to beg to differ very politely and send you the numbers and show you, because I've seen the numbers in the last 2 weeks and they have done this. So
I would love to see those.
I'll show them to you. I'll show them to you. So, but again, if we knew what we could rely on, he would put that in his numbers. Right now, he doesn't want to do it, so he just relies on the normal chapter 90 distribution because we know how to compute that.
Mhm.
Let's see. The last one is, did I hear you say we're trying to find more ways to tax the wealthy,
Exactly.
more than the 9%?
Well, there's other more wealth taxes, but all the things you're talking about, if we're talking about increasing budgets, the revenue has to come from somewhere. We have to pass a balanced budget, unlike the federal government.
It does. I just have personal experience with the exodus of very wealthy people because of the fair share tax. So I'm glad that you think it's above what it was supposed to be, but I'm not sure it's going to stay there. There's just, once people have kids grown, they say bye-bye. And they take the income tax, not only the 4%, but the 5% with them. And then they take the estate tax. Then they come back up here in the summer and suck services. So,
Most of the studies show, I know there was an initial study, but most of the studies show that about the same number of wealthy people, like other people in different income levels, are leaving the state, but it hasn't increased significantly since the millionaires tax passed.
I'm just not sure how reliable those numbers are, Jamie, but I could be wrong. I'm just saying.
Well, I would say, think about the fact that there's an even greater amount of millionaires tax revenue coming in. The projection was around 2 billion and it's around 3 billion. So that speaks to the fact that obviously there's a lot of millionaires that are staying here, right?
I think the initial estimate was 3 and it is 3. So I'm surprised.
No, the initial estimate was 2 billion and it's 3 billion a year.
And I'm actually shocked because of who I know have left the state. So all I'm saying is, you want wealthy people in the state because they spend a lot of money. They employ a lot of people. So we don't want to have a state that truly encourages wealthy people to go live someplace else for tax purposes, yet come back here when they want to and not pay taxes here. So that's just my moralizing as far as that goes.
Mhm.
Okay, I think that is my list, Andrew.
Marguerite? Yep.
This isn't directly about services for the town, but it kind of is. What are the trends that you're noticing in the state about regionalizing fire and police services? And because that is a budget impact, right?
I've certainly seen more regionalization of dispatch, yeah, but not, individual towns providing regional fire. Yeah,
So
I assume it's a third rail issue and will never happen.
can you?
We're actually going to begin a discussion about that.
Further
later
down on
the
our
agenda.
agenda.
Good luck.
Okay.
It's the overlap of capital infrastructure for fire services, particularly for towns of modest size, and we're a town of modest size, is a significant budget drag. I said this to the fire chief.
Oh, yeah.
Budget hearing is that, his capital budget made an excellent case for regionalizing fire systems, and that has been done. Regionalizing and privatizing have been done throughout the rest of the country. I know New England is slow to adapt to these modern newfangled ways, but the budget pressure for providing these services is real. And, you know, we looked long and hard at regionalizing our dispatch operations, and the economics appear to be real. And that
Yes.
they've got to also be at a bare minimum for fire services. You know, we've been passing 4 and 5 and 6 and now 7% tax increases. And, you know, my wife is a good liberal Democrat, and she's complaining about the taxes. And a lot of other people, I'm not a Democrat, just
Maybe TMI.
that a lot of people who have not in the past complained about the level of property taxes and you know, it falls far more heavily on the most vulnerable in our community, you know, where we have, you know, retirees living on fixed incomes, and the number one item in their budget is their property tax. And it's, you know, we've reached the point where, you know, asking, you know, for a 4 or 5% tax increase is cruel. And so I think that we've got to start thinking about regional solutions for a variety of things. The truth is that the borders that were, the lines on the map were driven by how far you had to walk to get to church on Sunday. That's how our borders were drawn. And they don't make sense. And I know this is, you know, an act of heresy, but, you know, they'll probably burn me at the stake or they'll tar and feather me. But we need to start thinking about regional solutions a lot more seriously.
Absolutely. I think the only thing I would be the point, and I agree with you, Al, is that the tax, I don't want to speak for Rep. Donahue, but the tax I hear the most about is the property tax. And that discussion that, you know, I'm trying to bring up is that if you well tax or you tax corporations more, you can reduce the burden of property tax increasing.
Well, we'd like to have a lot more commercial business in town. So, you know, we've resisted a split rate because we want to make Southborough a place where people would like to locate a business. Lack of sewer services is a challenge, but the reliance on the property tax is going to cause some real heartburn soon. And, you know, you can, I agree with Kathy that, you know, don't kill the golden goose. You know, I sold a company in here, and it was a close run thing as to whether we established residency in New Hampshire, because it would have been worth a non-trivial sum of money to me to do so. And thank my liberal Democrat wife for the money you got that year. But you're running dangerously close to killing the golden goose. And I will make one other pitch that I think the state needs to consider very carefully, which is there is a hidden, sorry, I don't get the soapbox for this audience very often. There is a hidden economic strength in the Commonwealth that is a network of small companies. Small and medium-sized companies that you find in every commercial development. You see the little signs on the doors. And, you know, when I had my company, one of the things I realized was you could find an expert in almost anything within 50 miles of where we were. There was, you know, very specialized power supplies or RF simulations. And state needs to be very careful. It's very similar to the Mittelstadt or the Keiretsu in Germany, or the Keiretsu in Japan. That, you know, that network of small and medium-sized companies needs to be supported, or maybe just left alone. That is a hidden strength of the Massachusetts economy. It's not always the Raytheons of the world that.
Well said.
Yeah, Al, I agree with you 100% on that. some people don't know my background, but I spent most of my career in private industry, working for a small company. I became a vice president of, a relatively small company. We had, I think at our peak, we had 210 employees. But I saw what it was like to have to try to meet payroll. I saw what it was like to have to meet our phone bill, which we needed to keep the company going. We had a huge phone bill for reasons that aren't worth going into. But, one of the things that I've seen in my 1.5 terms at the State House is how 200 different voices come together with different levels of experience to bring a lot of different perspective into our laws. And you talk about having an audience with us. I'll talk to you anytime you want, Al. So I did want to respond to Marguerite's question. I don't know how much is being talked about the potential alliances in a fire district, but
That's why Chief Puntini's here tonight. It's actually on our agenda.
but the proposal to have a joint fire district between Westboro and Southboro has a lot of synergies. The proposal to have a satellite station when the 495-90 project is done would be ideal to serve both communities. I've already been in touch prior to the discussion of having a district group to get access to this land once the project is done. I've sent a letter of support, which the senator wouldn't have been aware of since it was Westboro.
Right.
Now it's a joint thing. And I do think that when I talk to people in other parts of the country and we explain that a lot of people don't even know what county they live in and where everything's done by county and other places, the 351 communities that we have is the strength of Massachusetts, but that doesn't mean that we have to have separate fire districts for everybody. I know the senator was a little cautious about some of the aspects of it, but to answer Selectwoman Landry's specific question, we haven't heard a lot about it, is the answer. So
We do a lot of mutual aid with them anyway, so it's not like it's, and the equipment is usually expensive, as you know.
The reality is we already have a regional fire system. We just don't call it that.
and you have the duplication of
Of equipment and systems and, fire trucks are just hideously expensive. And, maybe someday somebody will do a little monopoly investigation on that, because I think there's now only 1 or 2 manufacturers of fire equipment. And I'm sure they give us all the best deal possible.
Chief, do you have anything to add to this discussion since it's your career?
It's on the agenda.
I guess from my perspective, Chief, what might be helpful is anything you wanted to talk about relative to the role of the legislature in this.
So I don't want to get ahead of the agenda item, but regional fire services has been talked about in the state, but it really hasn't been overly researched. The closest that I'm aware of is Ashland and Hopkinton back a few years ago. And there was Mr. Burke will have a lot more intel on that and why that didn't go through, but it was close. It was certainly close, and I think there was a lot of valid research with it. Al, you talked about our town borders and why they're, I couldn't agree more. My previous employment, when we went through a national accreditation process, we had site visitors all across 5 from different parts of the country come visit us in our station. And we explained how the Massachusetts Fire Service worked, and they couldn't understand it. So it's true, and it's different for us to hear that perspective because it's what we grew up in. It's a system that we came through, so it's what's normal to us. And then you start hearing other perspectives from other parts of the country, and town lines aren't a thing. It's county lines and beyond. And in special districts, we talk about a lot of the stuff that's duplicated is maybe the things that shouldn't be duplicated, right? Like our reserve pumpers, being able to have a reserve aerial ladder, different people in charge of EMS systems, but stuff that should be duplicated is not. Our operating policies, our response guidelines, because we all live in our own silos defined by those town lines. And I believe what a regional system could potentially do for us is help break those town lines, break those silos down, and start operating more harmoniously between each other. Your comment of we already have the regional system is partly true. Yesterday in Southborough, we had a reported building fire. Automatically, Westboro, Hopkinton, Ashland, and Marlborough were en route to help us because it's something that we can't handle on our own. We repay that favor on a routine basis. So we're already operating that way, but in a muddy fashion. So, you know, I'm really interested in the research of what does a regional system look like and what are the benefits to a community like Southborough. You know, it's a lot of questions with no answers, where I think a lot of research is certainly warranted and valid, and it should be something that other communities are looking at throughout the state.
Okay. And I know we're going to talk about it later on the agenda, but is there any other specific state role for the state legislature and how about with this or?
He asked for a feasibility study.
Yeah, I think it's the assistance with the research. Like I said,
Understood.
I don't want to get ahead of myself, but you know, it's on the you know, I saw it on the list for you know, potentially funding a feasibility aspect of this and this venture with Westboro.
Okay.
And I think that's where,
Yep.
you know, the states could certainly help us because it is a buzz topic. It is something new. You know, there are regional areas in the state. So like Centerville, Ossipee, Master Mills, Calm Fire, that's a regional fire department, but it's based off a water district. So they don't have the traditional town line boundaries like we have here. So, you know, it's kind of being done, but not really. You know, it's being done as far as going across that Master Mills line, but government wise, it's a different animal than we'd be talking about here. So you know, the last that I'm aware of that's been researched at depth is Ashland Hopkinton, which is aging on 10 plus years. So, you know, I think that's where, you know, funding to help us research and, you know, get a today's perspective would be really valuable and important.
All right. Tim, do you have any questions or?
Nothing new. Thank you.
All right. So just one thing that I would ask about is we have an annual kind of budget summit on a Saturday where select board and the advisory committee meet together and we bring in the larger departments, and the regional school committee was you know, talking about special ed topic I know you hear about from municipalities all the time. And they had brought to my attention, they had sent a letter to both of you and also to Senator Kennedy and Representative Kilcoyne. And this has brought up a topic which probably comes up every year about whether we can establish a mechanism to fund out-of-district special ed placements at the state level rather than through town expenditures. Do you think there will be some progress made on that, or is I know this is kind of what are your thoughts on this?
You mean beyond the special ed circuit breaker? Or?
Yes.
Mhm. I mean, there's legislation to increase, you know, to sort of lower the trigger, if you will.
Yep.
The circuit breaker. So that's in play. You know, I'd be the first to say that I think this budget, it's going to be very difficult for us to expand anything. You know,
Okay.
It's really about modest increases in different accounts. So that's my sense.
In terms of what they asked for in their letter, as people said earlier, change is slow at the State House, but they did ask the delegation, the four of us, to meet with the joint school board. And one of the things that we did talk about was the minimum, keep tapping this because it's got some numbers for me, but how minimum aid schools have been, what people were saying earlier, so adversely impacted. But the numbers show that between 2007 and 2023, for the Northborough, Southborough School District, state aid grew by 900,000, while district costs grew by 8 million towards, you know, the points people were
Yeah.
making earlier.
Yeah. Thank you. Yep.
Yes, thank you. deserve the acknowledgement. We did appreciate all our colleagues. We seldom have the Northborough Southborough delegation come together. So it was good to see all of the school committee members and a very well-attended meeting.
All right. Does anyone else have anything to offer? Or you have any other further suggestions for us?
Thanks for having us.
All right, well, thanks for coming in. Oh, one thing I just wanted to mention. We're talking about Costco to alert you that in our draft of our town meeting warrant is a home rule petition for another liquor license, which would be for the new Costco location. So just a preview of coming attractions.
Yeah, so anything you do to push that forward once it gets there would be very helpful,
Yes. yeah,
because that
that's good.
is
That's
in their lease and it's a contingency that we
Oh,
have
yes.
to provide this.
Yes,
Absolutely. We'll get that done.
the liquor licenses can be it's a very complicated issue. So I served on the Joint Consumer Protection Committee, CPPL, which included the alcohol licenses. So I learned a lot about that last session. I'm not on that anymore, but we'll try to get it done as quickly as
But
possible.
is there should we be concerned?
No,
Okay.
I assume it's a no-brainer.
Thank you for spending your evening with us.
All right, thanks.
Sorry
Thank
about the
you.
weather.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Long agenda.
This one's not that
It's
bad.
actually not that bad. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Mark reminded me.
Whatever, I'm glad.
Thank you, Mark.
All right. So the next item on the agenda are interviews for the Taxation Aid Committee. And I see Sally is here. Is Mike here as well? You want to, Sally, do you want to come up? And I know most of us know you, or all of us know you, but. I think most of us know who you are, but looks like you got a prepared statement.
Well, I did want to say a little bit about myself
Sure.
because I don't want to just be recognized as the guard at the town meeting door. Anyway, so I've lived here in Southborough now for 50 years. And I have 2 children that went through the public school system here. I myself taught public school for 35 years in another school system. I taught history, social studies, and so forth. My volunteer work includes, I was recently recognized by the Boston Athletic Association for 30 years of service as a volunteer. And I head up a team of 100 volunteers. And at the start line, who make sure are where they're supposed to be. I've been on the Southborough Open Land Foundation for 30 years, their board. I've been a deacon at Pilgrim Church. I'm a volunteer at the Southborough Food Pantry. And I do voluntary research for the Historic Commission for the Revolutionary War soldiers that are buried in the old burial ground. That's an ongoing project. And I'm presently doing research for the Tricentennial Committee for the program for Voices on the Grave. So From the Grave that they're going to be presenting next November 2027. So about a year ago, I found out there was a vacancy on this particular committee, and I applied for it only to find out that it had just been filled. So on February 3rd of this year, I filled out another application, and here I am. As an educator, I saw that financial need in middle-class communities can be kind of well hidden, and that's certainly been reinforced as I've been working at the food pantry. And Mr. Hamilton very kindly talked about the hidden pressures or the not so hidden pressures put on vulnerable, especially seniors who have lived here for many years and are almost being driven out by the taxes. And so I just felt that this was an opportunity to be on a committee that might be able to help a little bit. And I know that there's a wonderful chart here that has been developed by the assessor's office about what the tax release programs are. But I would hope that somehow this could get out to more people so they were aware of what the opportunities are. And, you know, as I've been doing my historical research, I have gone through an awful lot of the early town meeting minutes from the 1700s. And yeah, well, I do go down rabbit holes on that sometimes. And it's kind of appalling how many times people were warned out of the town because of financial issues. And I just kind of hope that we have a more compassionate attitude these days towards people that have financial difficulties. So that's it.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I know we're in the difficult position here. We have two very good qualified candidates for one open position, I think. Is that correct? That's correct. So I don't know if anyone on the board wants to ask Sally any questions.
I do, not a question, but a comment. So thank you for saying everything you said. I know what great work you do and all the various things. I didn't know about the marathon though. That is new. Can you give me your paper right there, the colored coded one real quick? So Sally, one of the problems we've got to make sure we continue to solve is how this committee gets its funding. We used ARPA money for a while, and that's probably run way down. You know, you can get up to $1,500 per year per qualified person, per qualified senior. So we've got to make sure that this continues to be funded. So that's one thing, if you're on this committee, you should make sure that you keep bringing forth. Okay, so let's talk about what the seniors can do. They can do this, they can do tax write-off, right? They can defer their real estate tax until they're not in the house anymore if they choose to do. So there are several things, and you're right. I don't know if everybody knows about it. You worked hard to get this out with Katie Berry, so we should continue to make sure this gets disseminated every way we can, senior center, whatever.
Lori Esposito did a lot of that too, from the assessor's office.
Yep. Okay, so thanks for bringing this, reminding us that we have this, so we should definitely reiterate getting this out and make sure your committee is funded appropriately to do as many of those as we need to do. Okay.
Yeah, I need to be more familiar with that
Yeah.
myself.
Anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, so this is actually a matter that I think we're going to take up hopefully at the next meeting, but as part of the review of financial policies that the town has, one of the things that came up was taxation aid, particularly for seniors.
Yeah.
And when we looked at the existing sort of drafts, it was very clear that there were several opportunities to amend that process. One is that we need to harmonize the financial limits, that is, how much income the threshold for qualifying for the program. The existing program, I think, says 45,000, but we have 60,000 for a dump sticker. And so I think there is a need to harmonize our qualification limits for all of the programs that aid seniors who struggle to pay their income tax. The second one was that a senior tax work-off program is currently limited to 30 applicants. And it seems to me that you know, in an era where we struggle to find qualified employees, we might want to think about expanding that substantially, perhaps doubling the number of slots that could be qualified. So I think there's some work that needs to be done. I know that the folks at the senior, it's, I guess, a split responsibility between the Taxation Aid Committee and the Senior Center. But I've asked Andrew to put this on a meeting for March.
Yeah,
I think we
I
need to
think
have a
we're gonna
substantial
plan to
discussion.
do it on the 17th.
Why are we limited to 30? Where does the 30 come from?
It was in the document, that's all I know.
You're not gonna
And,
hear.
yeah, we need to dig into this because, you know, we do have a significant number of senior citizens who, you know, they don't like to complain, not like me. And, we need to, take a hard look at all of these programs to make sure that we're doing right by people who have spent their lives living in this town.
Agreed.
All right. Tim or Marguerite, do you have any questions for Sally before Mr. Chef?
Is Mr. Chef here?
He is, he's online.
I don't know that he'd like to talk to us as well.
No, he will.
Okay,
I was just saying before
okay,
we bring on Mr. Chef.
okay.
I appreciated the background, so I'm good on questions.
Okay, Mike, are you there? Can we bring him over? Okay, thanks.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh, good. Excellent. Glad you can hear me. Well, good evening, Select Board members. My name is Michael Sheff and I live at 14 Parkerville Road. What would you like to know?
Mike, why would you
What?
like, why would you like to be on the tax? Tell us about your interest in serving on the taxation.
Sure.
Aid
Um,
Committee. I know you a little bit, but just about your background, your experience, you know, who you
Okay.
are, or what skills you can bring to the committee.
Okay, I won't bore you with them then. I've got about 10 pages of them, but I'll keep it to a minimum. Well, the town's website provides that the mission of the committee is, and I quote, to provide aid to the elderly and disabled in order to defray the real estate taxes of the elderly and disabled persons of low income. I would like to be part of that mission to assist in achieving that goal, and I very much want to help people who need help. That's why I want to be involved. I have worked in audit, tax, and finance positions for most of my career before retirement. Can you hear me?
Yes,
In 2014, and I've kept current in those fields. I have volunteered to work in the town's treasury, clerk, and building departments, and am a member of the Senior Center Budget Committee. In those positions and prior to retirement, my activity has been essentially to evaluate information submitted and to substantiate a claimed financial or tax position. Do you want my work history in a succinct fashion?
Well, maybe like one sentence. How about that?
Oh, okay. Public accounting,
A blank.
public accounting, comma, private sector finance and treasury responsibilities, government sector employment. Finally, I'll just say I enjoy working individually as well as in committee format. I get along well with colleagues and being in sensitive positions exposed to private financial information. Always respect privacy and confidentiality. Lastly and importantly, I bring sensitivity and compassion to all my endeavors. That's who I am.
Anyone have any questions for Mike?
No, I know Mike very, very well, so I'm fine.
Tim, Marguerite?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, so I don't think we've been in this position for a while. I'm trying to remember, there was maybe 18 months ago, we had, 4 people apply for one open position on the housing
Housing
authority, something
authority.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're not going to go wrong. We have 2 good candidates.
Can we increase committee size? I'm actually not joking about this, from 5 to 6. How would we? They're both would be so good on this committee. I don't know how you pick between the two of them.
Yeah, this is not one a committee where is it established by bylaw that it sets the number of people on the committee or? Oh, it's a statute.
It's a statute.
That says how many people?
There shall be a taxation aid committee consistent, of the chairman of the board of assessors, the city or town treasurer, and 3 residents of the city or town appointed by the mayor or board of selectmen, as the case may be.
So
What did you say, Al? I'm sorry.
I was just reading what I think is the bylaw, the statute we accepted. It says that there shall be a taxation aid committee consisting of the chairman of the board of assessors, the city, town, or town treasurer, and 3 residents of the city or town appointed by the mayor or board of selectmen, as the case may be. That's out of, off our website, but I'm kind of under the impression this is state law, which we have adopted. Is that correct?
Okay, so who are the other
we're
2?
pulling up right now. Yeah, Brian? You know,
Who your co-members are?
Jeff Klein. Yeah. So there's 5.
Okay, so Jeff Klein's the assessor, you're the treasurer. Who are the other 3? Okay, so, okay.
Yeah, okay, yeah, there's 1 open position, and these are 1-year appointments. All right. Well, I'll go first here. I think I would favor Mr. Chef, and this is just because I think that, Sally, I feel like you're a victim of your own success. I've already seen you doing so many things. I haven't seen Mike on a committee. I think it would be nice to have him on a committee. And I know we put down Council on Aging, but I usually haven't seen him in that role. So I think that would be my vote. But I certainly hope you understand that there's no. Again, this is a difficult position where we have 2 outstanding people, and we could just solve the problem by increasing the size of the committee. That's what I'd prefer to do. Anyone else want to?
Well, Ms. Waters has got the big advantage that if you want to get something done, find a busy person. But I think Mr. Chef with his financial background is probably the better choice at this point.
I support Sally Waters. I think with everything that she's done in this town, she's got a great background to do this, and I know how hard she works, so I am going to vote for Sally.
I support Sally because she applied last year and she applied again this year, and I've known her for a long time. She's compassionate, she's discreet, and she's hardworking.
Right, Tim?
Oh,
Tiebreaker.
I'm the tiebreaker. I think this is a hard spot to be in because you both sound great, and I don't have the same personal connections you guys have. Some of my colleagues up here have, but Sally, I just kind of saw as you were talking the passion you have for this and the places you are. So I think you both would be great, but I think Sally, you have my support at this time.
All right, so then I move that we appoint Sally Waters to the Taxation Committee for a term not to expire June 30, 2026.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Okay, congratulations. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mike.
Please, we're gonna find another good place for you.
Yes, we will.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Okay, Council on Aging is not going to happen. The presentation, and then Doug wanted to come at a different time. So it may be on the 17th, TBD. Is Kayla Monzak available? And we have in our packet, I think we had something that, yep. Nancy Sutton says, Sarah Castle and I've had the opportunity to meet with Kayla. I believe she'll make an excellent addition to the Youth Commission. Oh, hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So I don't know that I've met you before, and you know, it's good when someone comes before, you know, as a new volunteer, just to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and your interest in serving on the Youth Commission.
Sure. I am a licensed independent clinical social worker, and I currently work for an organization called AANE. I work doing life skills coaching with autistic adults. I have worked in public housing for seniors and younger people with disabilities, adult day health, hospitals, schools, and I recently did a training about connection and then got this letter in the mail that the commission was looking for volunteers. And I thought, oh, something's telling me I should apply. And I met with Sarah, I've met with Nancy, and it seems like a really great opportunity that I could help my community and give something back.
All right, great. I don't have any questions.
I have it on really good authority that the board is really excited about Keela and her background. So, I mean, what a perfect background for this role.
6:30, 2028. Okay. Any other questions? I move that we appoint Kayla Monzak to the Youth Commission for a term not to expire for June 30, 2028.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, thank you very much. So you should get an appointment letter. And Jim, we just appointed, because I know we've shifted a practice now. We've just appointed Kayla to the Youth Commission. Does she need to go to you to get sworn in? Okay. So you just find some time in the next, 30 days after you get the appointment letter, come in and get sworn in at the town clerk's office.
Sounds great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
She sounds good. She does, my gosh.
All right.
Love it, love that board.
Okay, moving to reports. I just got one scheduling thing I want to mention as we move towards finalizing the warrant for the annual town meeting. You see in the warrant, there's several zoning
Yes.
articles. I think the key, planning board is having a public hearing on these on Monday. So I think that would be a key meeting for those of us that want to think about and take a vote on whether we want to support it. Rather, I don't know if there's enough time here to bring them in and have us consider, have a discussion with them and vote on them. So
Just go to their meeting.
yeah, it's not mandatory, but if you want to be informed about those articles.
Yep.
And I think we should try to, by the 17th, decide whether we are gonna support them.
So you may want to post a meeting then if we end up with 3 people.
Yeah.
We want to be able to ask a question.
Yes, do you have a question or comment? All right. That's all I got for chair's report. Kathy, you have a member's report?
Yeah, my diatribe to Jamie as far as pilot payments, this sounds like I'm being a little bit hypocritical. So St. Mark's has very graciously agreed to donate $102,500 to the town for fiscal year 27, which includes $40,000 to buy one of the police vehicles that are requested. Remember, we have 4 vehicles being requested, 2 normal police cars and 2 smaller SUVs. They're going to buy one of the smaller SUVs. and then donate 62,500 to the general fund to offset, roads, things like that. They did 100,000 last year, so this is up 2,500. But let me just remind you, we've had a complete change of leadership at the school in the last year and a half. There's a new CFO and there's a new headmaster. People think private schools are awash in money. They're not. They don't even cover the tuition with their expenses with the tuition. There's always a gap. This year, the gap at St. Mark's is $4 million. Ours was 2 when we started. Theirs is 4. They close the gap with donations that they get from their parents, et cetera, alumni from their annual fund. So that's how they close it. People think they've got these big endowments. Yeah, they've got endowments for sure, but those endowments are restricted. People have donated money for specific causes and reasons. They haven't said, here's millions of dollars to go pay for Southborough's roads. So I was happy with the response. They came right back to us. Of course, they also said yes to Summer Nights as far as, the drone show. I am very appreciative of the effort that they make to truly try to contribute to offset some of the cost of the services that they actually consume. So thank you, St. Mark's.
Yes. Oh,
I have a quick report, which is Sam Stivers, Claire Reynolds, and I met with the team from Westboro to discuss the potential of working together in the future on the wastewater system. It's a very, 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 very preliminary discussion, but it did center around sort of providing wastewater services to the Dell properties and potentially then expanding outward, at least for Southborough from there. So this will be a
more
long.
than they've already committed to?
There were no commitments. This is what we're doing, thinking about. This is what they're thinking about. But this was an introductory meeting, where and we agreed. One of the things that came out was the desire again to look at a corridor study. We have some data on wastewater flows that were done from earlier studies, but they're looking at figuring out, how to change their zoning ordinances in light of the same pressures we're seeing where commercial real estate is not experiencing high vacancy rates, and they're experiencing the same tax shift, although not as severely as we are. So it was a very, very preliminary meeting, but it was certainly positive in tone.
But did they acknowledge that there was already an agreement for 30,000?
Oh, they understand
And
that.
20,000?
Oh, yeah,
for the 2 lots?
Yeah,
Okay.
they understand that. It was also pretty clear that we had thought a lot more about building a plant than they had, just because we've been thinking about it for about a year or so. But, it was a positive discussion.
Good.
There was no commitments on either side.
No?
No.
Not right away?
Not right. This is a 10-year process.
all right, Mark?
So we talked a little bit about this earlier, but wanted to make sure the board was aware, but obviously you are, that we've had some preliminary discussions with the town of Westboro on regionalizing fire services. The 2 chiefs, Chief Purcell and Chief Pantini, had been having conversations about this, brought the town manager and Westboro and myself into the conversations. And, I think it makes a lot of sense for a lot of the reasons that were talked about earlier to explore this and see where this may go. As the chief had acknowledged, when I was in Ashland Hopkinton took a look at this. I think from the state's point of view at that point, regionalizing fire services may have been a little bit of a heresy, to do this, for communities to do this, even though there are fire districts. But those attitudes, I think, have changed quite a bit. In my opinion, the Ashland and Hopkinton plan was driven by, a strong town manager and 2 fire departments that were really in a position to do something like this, and two chiefs that were willing to do this. You had aging infrastructure, and, so looking at building a shared station, looking at doing some of these things made a lot of sense. I think the reasons why it never came to fruition, because there was some change in leadership in the communities, and the retirement of one of the fire chiefs. So the people that were really pushing this and everything were, weren't there to help continue to move it forward.
Right.
I thought you had a comment, Kathy. That's why I paused.
Well, I was trying to understand why it sounded like it could have happened.
It could have. I really think it, was possible. So in this situation, you've got, two administrators that don't appear to be, going anywhere anytime soon. You have two fire chiefs who are very invested, in taking a look at this. And, both chiefs have already at least notified their departments as to, the fact that this is being looked at. I'll let the chief speak to, how it's been received, but I think it's been received well. That people are interested in taking a look at it. Chief, you may want to come up. I'm almost done filibustering. So, like I said, you can speak to those pieces,
Yeah, so it's certainly an exciting thing to research, whether we know it's going to be right for the town of Southborough or the town of Westborough, we don't know yet. And I think that's the point of a feasibility study. Both chiefs did notify our departments that this talk is happening. And I believe there's a, mix of excitement with it. It's something different, it's something new, it's something progressive. And, people like being part of something like that. So I think there's a lot of merit into looking into it. As we kind of talked about already, Al, you talk about a lot of the duplications that we have between our towns, but the issue is the things that should be duplicated aren't. You look at our public safety staffing study done 2 years ago, before we talk about any expansion in this community, it recommended we should be at 6 personnel on duty, a deputy chief, which we're able to fill, plus a EMS supervisor and a fire training supervisor. Currently, those roles are being done by ancillary roles being done by other people on shift. So, doing those roles take them away from any sort of emergency work. That's where, scale is of benefit, where, it'd be hard to have those individual positions in the department that we have now, same with Westborough. Now, all of a sudden, we look at a larger system, and now there's opportunity to really enhance our services. EMS, it's 70% of what we do. There's a lot of high skills that we do. We carry a lot of medications. We're required to conduct a lot of technical medical procedures, and it warrants some oversight. So it's that's just one example. Fleet maintenance is another one. You guys see the expenditure on capital items on fleet maintenance. And, if you added up the value of even just one of our organizations of the total asset value, private industry would probably have somebody specifically in charge of making sure that preventative maintenance is done, and really monitoring that and monitoring replacement cycles. We do that to an extent, to the best of our ability, but, you talk about a larger system. Now we can have a diesel mechanic on staff that's doing this stuff in-house and really making true professional assessments of our physical assets.
So the reason why we've got this on just as a town administrator report, not under other matters, is, this came up, the meeting between you and Chief Purcell, and then we're both interested in pursuing this. This came up within the last 2 weeks or 10 days, while there was a combination of Chief was on vacation, Mark was on vacation, I was a little bit on vacation. We got the special town meeting. And then during that time period, it would land to the point where the Westborough Select Board discussed this in a public meeting, right? And there, the thing for the board to talk about and discuss was, do we want to ask, are we interested enough that we want to ask the state for help in funding a study about a feasibility study of merging, right? So we just haven't had enough time where I feel like you should have an opportunity to make a full presentation.
Yeah, and
about
that was
this.
gonna be my next comment. I know I'm kind of, certainly getting ahead of myself. I'd be happy to come in at the future meeting, next meeting after, and do a more detailed presentation like Westboro had for their board. I watch it. It was, 20 minutes-ish. And they had a lot of great comments, and Chief Purcell put together a pretty good, slide deck that we.
Do you recommend we look at that video
Yeah,
Okay.
I would, it is certainly no harm in doing so. I thought there was a lot of good questions there and, a lot of good information presented and, we can certainly, I don't want to say duplicate, but, give the Southborough perspective of the same presentation.
I think the impetus for looking at this too now, is that Westboro is a little bit behind us in terms of looking at a public safety staffing study now. And they were looking at,
Oh, that's
at a-
right.
at a police and fire staffing study, but there was this interest in the possibility of regionalizing fire services. So rather than go out and do a staffing study that includes fire, they wanted to limit that scope to simply police and use funds to help explore this other avenue instead.
Chief, if it's not that usual yet in the state of Massachusetts, who do you use to do a feasibility study on it?
I think that would take a little bit, I'd certainly want to research that a little. There's a few, there's a few consultant companies out there that specialize in emergency services. And I think, they would at least have the scope to know who to ask, but that would certainly, I don't want to say this person, because I don't know.
Because I know other states do this.
Yeah.
This
all
is,
the time, yeah.
there are probably 44 other states that already do this because they actually have functional counties. I grew up in Western New York and, my mom had a medical emergency in the town of Arundecoit, which borders the city of Rochester, and they had a completely integrated fire service that covered the city and the surrounding communities. So, we're not inventing the wheel. We're simply discovering the wheel that other people have found
Been using it for
centuries
a long
before.
time, right.
So let's have you come back 17th. Want to do the 17th, or you want to do it by the 10th? Because the 10th, we really got to try to
Yeah,
finalize the warrant.
17th should probably be fine.
Okay.
Let me confirm by email tomorrow with you
All right.
on that. But yeah, I left my phone over there, so, and
Okay.
I want to confirm with you other calendars, but I don't see why it should be an issue.
Okay,
So would the cost of the study be split with Westboro?
well, that's what we're going to talk about on the 17th.
Yeah,
Yes?
I think that's the intent, yeah. of,
Got it, okay.
And if you watch their meeting, talks about that a little bit, whether, if we are a partner or not, and, how some of the members of the board thoughts and moving forward are.
One of the other things I'll ask when you come back is the mutual aid network and just kind of how that fits into this picture a little bit too, because I don't think that you just mentioned the two or not all of the mutual aid, right?
Definitely not.
Yeah, so.
In other words, you got more mutual aid besides Westboro.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, certainly, even if it was, one department between us and Westboro, we had a building fire in either one of our communities, it would still certainly be mutual aid in. I don't think we,
Yeah, yeah.
the system wouldn't be that big, with just those two communities. But, but I think the mutual aid in out all of a sudden shrinks a little bit for our routine. Now all of a sudden we're able to handle a little bit more, depth of coverage. There was, well, the week I was away was a busy week and, there was a lot of vehicle accidents and some power lines down even outside of the snowstorm. We're stacking, 3-4 runs deep. And now all of a sudden you look at a regional system and that just kind of, that helps mute that a little bit.
All right.
Well, all I
To
want
be
to say,
discussed in further
can I add one
detail
more
next-
thing?
Yeah.
Andrew? So all I want to say is, again, you're showing why we hired you. So your ability to be flexible and actually consider, not everybody would do this. They might be insecure, whatever, but your willingness and eagerness to actually look at this is totally appreciated.
No, I appreciate that. And a lot of it's the membership too, where, we do work so closely with Westboro and some of our other mutual aid partners. We're already familiar faces with each other. So this is, kind of like, in my view, it's kind of the natural next step to at least explore to see if it works.
All right, thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, do we have any holds on the consent agenda? move that we approve consent agenda items A and B.
Second?
All those in favor? Okay. Next item is deliberation on the FY '27 budget. And we've got in front of us the most recent rev cap numbers showing that with the level services budget and with there's passage of Article 1, but not Articles 2 and 3, that there's currently a positive levy balance of a little over $400,000, projected tax increase of 4.9%. So it's been heading in the right direction since the last time we talked about this. And in the draft budget, it is showing debt exclusions for the Neary roof, the Trotter roof, the sidewalks article, and the roads as well. So, that's an issue that came up at last night's meeting is should the war, if we are seeking to have these subject to a debt exclusion, should we be explicit about that in the warrant?
Well, the reason you don't do that, and we jumbled the answer, and I don't think Kate's answer was very clear either. So I'm looking at Andrew. There wasn't any point in getting into the weeds last night because there's very few people that understand this. But if you don't put that in the article, then if it fails at the ballot, you still have the flexibility to bring it back in. If you approve the article subject to a debt exclusion, and then it fails at the ballot, which I don't think it will, but if it did, then you'd be stuck. You wouldn't be able to do it. So that's why you don't put it in the article if you want to make sure that you're going to get it one way or the other.
So is it the case that whether or not those are subject to a debt exclusion, it doesn't impact whether we fit within the Prop 2.5 levy this year? But it would in future years?
Yeah, so if you go to page 1, look what happens. So that 2,135,190, that's on the top part. So that is, so we've increased our levy capacity by that amount, right? And so next year, that number will get bigger because these debt numbers are going to get bigger next year. This is only just a little bit of interest for the first year. So they get bigger. So we will have a bigger levy limit next year because of the increased debt from those.
So Mark, when does Jim Haggerty need to know what we are seeking to have a debt exclusions on the ballot?
So if we're putting debt exclusions on the ballot, the clerk's office needs the language voted by the select board by noon on April 10th.
So I have just a process question right now. I'm a little confused.
It was 45 days. That's 45 days?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
So right now,
I'm sorry, Kathy, 35 days.
Okay.
Yep.
so right now we have the 4.5 that's been approved yesterday. And that is gonna go against the FY '27 budget, correct? Which we'd be approving before this would come to the ballot?
Start again. What did you say? What was it?
The
4.5?
4.5 that's been approved yesterday,
Oh, for the roof.
right, for the roof. And the plan is that's a debt exclusion to borrowing article because we're gonna borrow it. So what would come to the FY '27? It would be the first year of the borrowing, right? So it's whether or not we exclude the debt.
These are your numbers that are for the 4 sets of debt that we intend to exclude. That's the fiscal year '27 impact, which is just interest. He does temporary borrowing at first. So he's estimated when he's going to actually have to pay some bills for these, and that's the interest. So that's the impact for fiscal year '27.
Interest only because if the project is completed by August, there's going to be either one or two, then hopefully it's fully, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian. Then it's going to be bonded shortly thereafter, correct? And
But you
so
don't
that-
have to bond it right after. So when
Well-
would you bond the roof? If, let's say it's done in October, which is the plan, when would you actually permanently bond it?
You got
Okay, but you don't have to, is my point. Okay, so right now you've assumed it's gonna be fiscal year 27, completely temporary, just interest only, right? That's what you've assumed?
Which is $73,356 for what we'd have to worry about. Okay, not 4.5, it's
Oh, no.
70, under $74,000.
The one comment I have sort of just, it's a nitpick, but this is not a level services budget because we are in fact adding staff to, we're fully funding the police. So this is not a level services budget. This is an enhanced services budget. I don't think there's any other way to describe it.
Well,
Well, those police were in the fiscal year 26
Yeah.
budget, so why is this not level service budget?
Because, they're coming on in April, so we're absorbing the full cost. So this is truth in budgeting. I think
it's a word,
it's not a level.
I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying.
We would receive, we will have more police services in fiscal 27 than we had in fiscal 26. And so you can't call this unless, and unless, of course, you want to make offsetting cuts, which I would actually recommend we do to further reduce 4.9 is not an acceptable number in my mind.
So Andrew, you want to give an update on where advisory is on this process and how we can try to come together as much as possible on this to finalize the warrant we have to sign it by the 17th, and we're going to try to be as final as possible a week from today.
Yeah, I will try to speak for advisory, even though Marcy's not here, but I will give it my best shot. I think the idea was we were gonna have another meeting, try to join your meeting next week. I think that would go a long way. I think it's
So
just
you will post for the 10th?
post for the, 10th, yes.
Okay. All right, okay,
I think that's where we try to
That
fill
will
some of
be-
those gaps.
okay.
But can we stick with Al's point here? I don't disagree what you said as far as, yeah, because we only have part of a person in fiscal year 26, now you got a full person.
Well, it depends if you're looking at, is the service an end of period service and you're just carrying forward to the following year, or are you using an average balance?
Okay,
service? Right?
whatever, right? Okay, so, Al, you said you, but you is we, you're part of the we here. Okay, so what else do you want to cut? If we're not going to cut that, what else are
Well,
you proposing
so
to cut?
my-
I know
my
you don't
obvious-
want to cut capital, right? You don't think that's the right way to do
Well,
it?
I think that's a separate category. The point I'm trying to make is that we have seen sort of an unrelenting increase in the size of municipal government in the presence of what is a very, very stable population. And that those increases are falling heavily on people who, in some cases, are struggling to pay for them. And so, if I think that we ought to be holding the net head count in municipal government flat. Now, I can suggest a couple of things. One of the things we could do is choose not to fill the position that Melanie vacated. That would cover the cost very roughly of a single police officer for a full year. The second thing we could consider is reducing the budgets of DPW and fire and rec by, again, another $60,000 or $70,000. And that would probably get us pretty close to the cost of the two police officers for the full year. Essentially trying to control the cost of municipal government. We cannot continue to put through these increases that exceed inflation. We're not delivering value for the taxpayers' money, in my opinion. So those would be the sorts of things that we ought to do to stop the swelling of our municipal government.
Okay.
I know I'm beating my head against a brick wall
No,
here.
you're not necessarily doing that.
So, I mean, just the thing that we as a board need to figure out is, because I don't have the same view as you on this.
I'm shocked.
All right. I feel like we are close to where we're gonna land on this. And I mean, just some quick numbers. Kathy, please let me know if think this is wrong. I tried to do some basic math. So like, if you want to bring this down by 1%, right? roughly, if you want to take the current 4.9 and get it under 4, you need to cut $500,000. Is that about right?
It's 580,000 for every 1%.
So it's closer to 6? So I just don't think even the positions you talked about, I don't think they, come close. They add up to that number.
No, they don't.
Yeah, but just another thing I have in mind is that I think that town meetings support, particularly for the police, is for increased police staffing is stronger than I think your estimation of it. There were 2 successive, we had a special town meeting where we added the lieutenant position. I think that was the special. And then the annual where the kind of compromised, phased way of adding these positions, this was all discussed and approved at a prior town meeting, So that, I hear what you're saying. I just feel like we're kind of close to landing where I think we're gonna land. And that just impacts this, the schedule of meetings, because if we are gonna cut $500,000 from this budget in the next week, we gotta have a plan on how to do that, right? So Marguerite, what do you think?
I think town meeting definitely wanted the police staff, so I certainly wouldn't look there to cut.
Well, one thing you could consider doing is putting the monkey on town meeting's back. They said they wanted these things, and now the question is, do you want to pay for it?
Yep.
And to essentially put that as a separate article, or to say, if this is what you asked for, this is what it costs. And, then I can't argue with town meeting if they vote. So that's one way to proceed, but I do think, what I proposed is trying to constrain the growth of municipal government, because municipal government has been growing far faster than the schools. Their enrollments have been declining, but we have a problem here, which is, we've got to start controlling the growth of municipal government.
Al, how about the fact of health insurance, which is what is such a driver for so many department budgets?
Just because it's health insurance, that is a reason to reduce staffing. Because, if you're in the private sector, you would be having those conversations.
So this is where I do disagree. I don't agree with what the root of the problem is. I don't think the town government has grown wildly. When you actually look at the head count over the period we looked at it, it's grown 0.3% a year. It's not when you've got to pick up the schools, that's part of this town. So I still don't think it's head count. There are things like, look at the number we just heard tonight, $800,000 of revenue, and the cost of what it's trying to offset actually increased by $8 million in the school budget. The state has not kept up with their share of the cost of this year after year after year after year. The commercial tax base continues to erode, so therefore it's been pushed over to the houses. So I just don't think it's a personnel problem. The only 2 departments that have grown extraordinarily in the last, call it 10 years, are police and youth and family services. And I think they've grown for the correct reasons. Every vote we've had at town meeting recently that has involved the police was almost unanimous as far as supporting what we're trying to do, the lieutenant, et cetera. That study said we needed 9 new people. We've only done 3, and we've stuck with it this year. I think we've done a good job, and this is the first year I can remember that we've actually stuck with no new people. And no new hours. We've said it every year, and then we still add people.
I think there was one year where I think we said that, and then the Council on Aging had a position, they want to add like 4 more hours to that position.
I think every year we've added
It was a
something, no matter what we said. So I think we've done a good job as far as truly sticking with it this year and not doing that. So I don't know. I think Bill's budget is only up 2% year over year. Fire is not up bad. Police is up a lot because of the impact of the people becoming full-time July 1st. That's what's caused theirs to go up. Schools, we've got a collective bargaining agreement that we have to abide by. So I know, Al, you don't like it, but I'd look at capital if we're gonna cut something, as far as trying to get this down a little bit
I
more.
think capital needs to
I
contribute
think
as
for
well.
capital, we try to bring this down by cutting capital. We're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? We're just pushing things off to the next year
And we think next year is really a worse year because this debt's gonna come fully online. So that's why I wouldn't do it, Andrew. What you just said is we're just gonna make a problem that's bad next year already worse. And this year, we at least got it in the black. And the first number is not 5, 6, or 7, it's 4. I wish it were 3, 2. But it's not. The only other things that may make this a little bit better, Brian thinks he can get another $50,000 or $60,000 out of the ambulance fund. Brian, I'm talking to you, okay, right? Okay, and we haven't heard from Fay School as far as our request for them to fund a police car. I'm not particularly hopeful, but we have asked, right? But that's minor stuff. That's 50, that's what, $130,000 out of 580 that we need to go down another point.
Andrew? Yep.
Andrew Pfaff, 50 Oak Hill. I think the other thing to really keep in mind is 80% of our budget is salaries. And between the average COLA and the average step increases, depending on the department, it's somewhere between 4.5% and 8%. So ending up at 4.9% when 80% of your costs are going to go up 5 or 6%, I think is the town needs to start feeling comfortable with an annual 5% increase without losing headcount, without losing services, right? If we want to keep steady state, a 5% increase should almost be our goal.
Tim?
I disagree with 5% being status quo. I understand why it should be considered status quo, but I think that we need to start to figure out how do we break that cycle from being status quo. It does mean less services and people. I'm actually in line with Al's thinking about not finding enough money to offset the 2 salaries and 2 other budgets, just pull them back and ask the department heads to come back with a reduced number. So go back by essentially the amount of the salaries. Also in my polling, which is not a huge subset of people, but a number of people I've spoken to so far, and I asked them if they'd reconsider their vote last year when they did vote for the police. They said yes. So I am interested maybe in, just putting that as a separate item that allow people to re-vote at this meeting and just reconfirm, given the climate of the situation being different. So I'm also willing to consider these as let town meeting vote. Let them decide if we want to cut a little bit and us structure this in a way that they can more easily have a couple things that we pinpointed out and say like, these are things that we separated, do you want to still recommit yourselves to these financially?
So Andrew, sorry to call on you again. Is it correct that has the advisory committee voted on the what I called level service budget? Al disagrees with that characterization, but the operating budget is.
Correct. We have voted on the operating budget as it stands in the budget today. I think we were waiting on final Algonquin numbers and Assabet, but the departmental budgets.
Do you know what the vote on that was? Was it?
Yeah, I think it was unanimous.
Unanimous.
All right. So the way I just kind of size this up, getting to the point where we sign the warrant is my read of this is this is the 3-2, divide on this term of the select board where 3 of the 2 feels like we're pretty much where we're going to land. It might go down a little bit. And it's also approved by the advisory committee. So we've got pretty much, we're looking at close to what we're going to see in the printed warrant. So,
and remember the statutory responsibility of the select board when it comes to the budget. The select board recommends a budget to advisory. Advisory is the one that submits the budget to town meeting.
yep.
So,
That's correct.
right. So you guys can say no, we say yes. What goes into, you guys can hold it on town meeting floor and amend it, but advisory is the one that submits the final budget to town meeting for.
Advisory has not voted on capital yet, so they've still got to do that, correct?
Correct.
Because we
Well-
were waiting to see, what was going to happen last night to know whether we were going to keep the positive levy balance. And so now we know we're doing that. So not sure what advisory is going to do as far as capital goes. Jason Melanowski is expecting select board and advisory to come back if you want to cut this and say, we want 1.3 million, 1.2 million, so that they come back with a final recommendation. So they're going to meet Monday night if we need them to revise what's in here right now.
I don't see the need for revisions. That's my take.
Well, I mean, the reality is that the motion that goes on the floor is advisories. So, and they voted, and, you know, we can decide whether as a board we want to offer an alternative or whether as an individual wants to offer an alternative.
I do not.
Okay, I don't either. So it feels like, so we'll have a joint meeting next week, and the goal is to finalize this, right? So Kathy, your point, do we feel like we should ask, if capital is meeting Monday, do we have any ask for them? Like,
Right now, we don't.
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had the action item on the $70,000 for smart meters. And what I've in my communications with Bill, there really are two sets of requirements that the $70,000 needs to be focused on. The first set of requirements is a system for leak detection. And the second part is a plan for revenue meter replacement. And they're really two separate requirements. There are some technologies that may do both, and there are other technologies that may just provide standalone services, and that's what the $70,000 is for. And I think I understand that Bill needs some people who actually know what they're doing to go and help him noodle through that. So I'm going to recommend the 70,000.
Okay.
But it's not that's in the water budget anyway, so it's not.
Right,
part
right.
of this. Okay, so is
I
that
had the
gonna
action
affect
item.
us? And I am
check it out.
happy to defer to your expertise on signals and whatever as far as what to do with that technology, but that's not part of the general fund.
No, agreed, but
Theoretically, I guess.
I'm just checking off my box.
Okay.
Rates of the earth are so too high. Yeah. Okay. I don't know what else we are gonna then feel like we've come to a stopping point in our discussion about the budget for tonight. Review of the warrant. So this really is, you know, the penultimate meeting here before we try to finalize this. Overview is, this is a pretty plain vanilla annual town meeting warrant, maybe the most plain vanilla I've seen. And I think it just reflects that a lot of our energy went into last evening. It's the main item on this warrant is just the budget. Then Article 9, you see the red language there. So you remember when Jason suggested that, hey, maybe this year you ought to consider on your capital articles article, giving the town administrator the ability to allocate money among different items if one's a little bit less and one's a little bit more. So
Capital items.
capital items, yeah. So that red language is new, right? Is everyone okay with that?
Yes. I think that's more efficient. Because they don't know exactly, they haven't ordered the stuff yet, so prices do change. We hope not much, but they could go a little bit either way. So this does give some flexibility within reason to take an underage and offset it against an overage.
Okay. Article 10, that has the 70,000 for smart meters.
It's actually, I don't understand why that's in here. It's coming out of the water fund.
Article
still-
10 is the Article 10 is the capital for the water fund.
Still needs to be
It
appropriate.
needs to be a
Alright.
separate article. That's why it's out there separate.
Okay, sorry.
Um,
Okay, then stop there. Al, do you want that in here this year?
Yes.
Okay. So you're okay with it?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, just one, this is just a comment on Article 22. This is the CPA article. It's asking for a set aside of $29,000 in administrative and operating expenses. I know that's what happens every year. It just seems like that's a lot of money where I don't think there's really any CPA projects this year to spend almost $30,000 in administrative costs to administer nothing new.
We can vote not to support it.
Yeah, all right,
I would.
all right. Want to make a motion?
Yeah. Which article is it? Sorry.
Article 22.
On page 19.
Yeah, Article 22.
Yep.
I move that the board not support Article 22 as printed in the warrant.
Second.
All those in favor?
That was 5-0.
Yep. I mean, I understand. You would think that this is money that's already been. Would there be some reserve for this administrative? Already built up?
CPA, the law itself allows you to take 5% and put it
Yeah.
into this bucket to pay admin. If you don't put it there, then they have no money to pay the admin cost. So it stays in their unallocated reserve.
Yeah, my understanding is, I could be wrong, that these are not amendable on the floor. Is that right,
sounds-
Mark?
That sounds right.
Yeah, it does sound right.
Yeah, okay.
There's been questions about whether it could or couldn't be before, so. But
Could you
I will.
ask somebody wiser than we are?
Yeah.
And then, I think if the CPA committee wanted to come back with a different number, maybe we would think about it, but
Support it.
support it, but
But it's their article, so they'll bring it forth and then there'll be a vote and we'll say in support. Right?
Andrew, has advisory taken a position on this? Okay.
Okay, Margaret, you want to give an update on the cemetery commission article?
Yes, and Tim is here, maybe he can help me. The Cemetery Commission basically had two goals. One was dealing with individual cases that might come up that Bill felt it would be better if this wasn't discussed publicly at the select board meeting, because sometimes it was sensitive. And the other goal was to acquire land because the cemetery is becoming too small. And so the thought was, and Bill was happy with this, and I think Tim agreed also because he'd studied it in depth, that if we had an ad hoc committee to look at land acquisition, the charge would be to look at land acquisition. It would last for a year. It would contain 5 members, no more. It would get cumbersome, Bill said. And it would be appointed by the select board to report back to the select board and the DPW. That he felt would be adequate first step, because the cemetery commission, if you really, really redo it as a cemetery commission, you have to go to the state and change the
Special act.
well, yeah, exactly. So that would take years. Anyway, this would allow, if it simply goes to an ad hoc committee, take it off the town meeting warrant, we could start looking to acquire land as soon as the.
So this
committee
is not going to be
established.
an article?
Correct. So.
Okay, we'll just
so-
do we'll look at an ad hoc committee.
Yes. And the
Okay.
cemetery commission, as the second type of situation that we'll be dealing with, is a discussion later on. Did I say that correctly, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't use the word, Tim Woodland Road for the record. I wouldn't use the word cemetery commission for that other part. It just, Bill wants an advisory committee. Cemetery commission implies a whole bunch of state machinery and requirements, and we don't need to go there to solve this problem. You know,
Duly noted.
wrong
Okay.
tool for this job.
Excellent.
What it says here on the draft of the warrant is creation of cemetery commission, so.
So we're going to take it off.
Like it anyway.
There you go. There it
Um,
goes.
Cemetery Expansion Committee.
And
One other thing,
columbarium.
the last thing, comment I
Okay.
have on the draft warrant here is
Oh, wait,
I know. The last article is a citizens petition from Jack Barron. We've gotten off of this practice, but it used to be a practice, which I thought was good. Someone sponsors a citizen petition, you can invite them to come present to the select board, tell us what you're doing. And rather than have this whole happen at town meeting. So should we?
What is he doing?
I don't really
It's an
understand
audit.
it. So that's why I would
It's an
suggest
audit.
that he come in and explain what this is about.
Separate finance committee.
Should we do that?
yes,
Okay, so we'll ask Jack to explain what is this trying to accomplish? Is there some other way we can do it?
So just one other item, before the clerk left, he passed me a note. There has been, he had been hearing conversations about a citizen petition coming in to ban plastic bags. He just sent me a note that says, it was submitted to his office and the number of signatures have been certified. So there will be another citizen petition added on to the end of this, to ban plastic bags.
Okay. great.
Good, I like it. Is it Michael Washington?
No, I don't believe so.
He did it
I
earlier.
remember
Yeah.
Like-
Sam Stivers looked into this, and I know we'll get into this, but he is against this because there was some article, if you do this, then people save their plastic bags and they use them to clean up dog poop. So this actually just needs people buying more plastic bags. Okay,
Oh, my goodness.
Westboro does it already.
Andrew?
Andrew Pfaff, 50 Oak Hill. In terms of cemetery commission, one thing I had thought before is instead of creating a committee, which I know there's some issues with having sensitive things, open meeting law, kind of having those discussions in public. If you defer that decision-making authority to Bill and to the DPW superintendent, he can create his own appointed, advisory committee. Exactly. So basically, it doesn't need to be on the warrant. He could do it as he wants.
Yep.
And so it's a body appointed by a public official solely for the purpose of advising the official on a decision that the individual could make alone, are not public bodies subject to the open meeting law. For example, a school superintendent appoints a 5-member advisory body to assist her in nominating candidates for a school principal, a task the superintendent could perform herself. That advisory body would not be subject to open meeting law. So I know there's some confidentiality, so that's.
That's what it sounds like. So good, Josh. I think you're reiterating what they're going to
You
do with the
don't-
second step.
Yeah, you don't need any article in
We agree.
warrant, right? You just.
We agree.
Bill does it.
Exactly.
Okay.
We agree. It's coming out. Ditto, ditto.
Great minds think alike.
Okay. Last item on the agenda is vote to declare the level of interest in 39 Meeting House Lane. This is the first time I've dealt with something like this, so. Mark or Vanessa, please correct me if I'm wrong. So there's a affordable unit, deed restricted affordable unit in Meeting House Lane. The person who owns it wants to sell it. The maximum resale price is $207,363. So there's a marketing period, which I think the town can help with, let people know about the availability, so that another person who meets the income requirements could buy this for $207,000. It's a great opportunity, right? We can also, the town can purchase it.
So we've got the right of first refusal.
Okay,
basically.
but the Affordable Housing Trust Fund has already looked at this.
They
Don't
have
want it.
that already.
Okay.
included,
Passed?
You know, that they had no interest in it because they knew it would stay as an affordable unit. But the board, we were advised by council that the select board should officially take a vote as
yeah.
well.
I wasn't at that meeting. I was in the hospital, but we should let this
Yeah.
just go. I mean,
It's affordable now. It's going to be affordable in the future.
Correct.
Yeah.
We would work with CHAPA to advertise it widely and so forth.
Okay, so
I move we decline interest in the,
That's a good
in the
price for
property.
somebody to buy in.
That's excellent.
Yeah. And there are rules, that, it may not go for that price, but there's layer upon layer of rules on how this works. But yeah, so I'm going to move that we decline
Al,
the opportunity.
one question. If CHAPA handles it, it could be anyone from the state of Massachusetts?
I think it could be anyone, yes.
Okay, but if we handle it, it could be somebody from Southborough?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so it's always gonna be anyone from the state?
I don't think, I think there are some, I'm not an expert in this area, but I think there are some rules that might allow us to make it available to town employees, but, you know,
That might be worth finding out about.
That will
This-
be included in the advertisement that Chapel
Yeah.
will produce that we will share. Why?
That it will be someone from town?
I don't know that specifically, but they will have very specific eligibility criteria, but we'll follow up with them and find out,
Yeah.
is there a rule for a preference of current residents or employees or so forth?
Because it would,
That would be nice.
yes.
All right, so there was a motion made. I don't think there was a second yet.
Second,
All those in favor of the motion? Decline interest. Marguerite?
I'm abstaining.
Okay, so there's
So it was 4-0-1.
0-1.
401.
All right,
Bridget?
okay.
Andrew, I have just one question to ask about for later, just because of the timeliness of this. But we did a special town meeting on a Monday night, we did one on a Saturday. If we could get some feedback from the two different nights for any future ones, I'd appreciate thinking about it, because I think our attendance was half, but I don't know if it was topics, but just something to think about as we go forward.
Our
Okay.
attendance, you think, was half last night of what it should have been?
No, I think it was half of the Costco vote, whether or
was.
not it
Well,
was
that's
the
not
Costco vote or not.
surprising.
But I don't want to get into it now. I just was bringing it up as something to noodle on and maybe ask Jim feedback on a future date.
So, yeah, I actually spoke to Jim very briefly, and he is suggesting that we very shortly identify, at least pencil in a fall town meeting and next year's annual town meeting, because that would then allow the schools and the rec programs to schedule around those. So we're giving them, you know, heads up well in advance. I
That's-
thought that
that's
was
a good idea.
Good idea.
And the reason we should start talking about the STM in the fall soon is because, do we want to have two? There's a couple things I already know that need to go in the fall, right? We need the zoning article for 55 and over is going to go, and then CPC is going to bring forth the dog park. So there's two, but do you really want to have two fall special town meetings, one for the school
No.
project? So I think we should start talking about that date and know,
I can't even
and just,
get, I'm not.
just agree that we're going to have
I
one,
know.
just agree that we're going to have
We're less
one.
than 24
And
hours
have
after
more
the
than,
last-
more than school on it.
Andrew's.
I think we should
process
actually
unit has shut down.
express our appreciation to the town clerk and his
Yes.
team.
Yes.
Who
I
did
mean,
an excellent job.
we exceeded his, I think it caused it a budget issue because we had 3 meetings. You know.
It
we
did,
had-
it
Yeah.
did, it
Yep,
did.
yep.